Well, Arsenal do have problems in the creativity department, and for a long time the debate has gone on about whether they need an out-and-out striker. I think the answer now is they do, and maybe the guy they should be looking at, being a bit ambitious, is Viktor Gyökeres, who keeps on improving, and I think he's averaging a goal a game since he moved to Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. So might they make that kind of move? It's speculative, of course, but it might make a big and decisive difference to the Gunners. Well, Aston Villa want to be in the top four again, don't they, this season, to make another campaign in the Champions League next time around. Two players they might be looking at in midfield, Joe Bellingham at Sunderland, and maybe a bid to bring back Douglas Luiz, who did such a good job for them. He's out at Juventus, hasn't gone that well for him there, so could be open to the offer. Bournemouth are having a great season, but like a lot of clubs, they might want to just increase their options and squad depth. One player that I like a lot and really is ready for a loan is Josh Achampong at Chelsea, who's been used in European competition. So a loan move for this stylish youngster might be very good news for the Cherries. Brighton are always attractive to watch, but their defence has sometimes looked a little bit leaky this season, so they might be keeping an eye on the situation with Anders Christensen, who's been injured for a lot of the campaign so far at Barcelona. A lot of Premier League and Champions League experience. He might be available to them, and he is fit again after his injury problems. Well, Brentford have been among the great entertainers in the Premier League this season, but sometimes left-back's been a bit of an issue for them. That left side, they've had to play Keane Lewis-Potter at left-back on occasions this season, so I wonder whether a left-back might be in order until Rico Henry is fit again after his long-term injury. One player I like the look of is Callum Doyle, who's at Norwich City, formerly Manchester City. Tall, stylish left-back. Maybe he could make the move to West London. Well, of course, Chelsea's squad is famously very well stocked. You see that every time they play in Europe and they play a virtual reserve team, and they've got a 100% record in those European matches. So not a lot is needed at Chelsea, but one player they definitely admire, and they're not the only club to admire him, and that's Liam Delap, who of course was at Manchester City, was transferred to Ipswich Town, and in his debut season in the top flight has looked a real handful despite Ipswich's problems. He's powerful, he can hold the ball up, and he can score goals as well. So he's an important player, and he would be good cover, I think, for Nicholas Jackson in that number 9 role, and would just add to the options that Chelsea might have in that department. I'm guessing that Crystal Palace know they're going to lose Mark Gehi sooner or later. Newcastle, of course, we know are very interested in him. So they'll have to be thinking, I think, in terms of a replacement. And a player they might be looking at, I think, is Taylor Harwood-Bellis, who's made his debut for England now and is down at Southampton, who are doomed to relegation. So he might be up for the move. Everton's huge problem is scoring goals. We know that they're pretty resilient at their best in defence. But where is that extra dynamism, creativity and goal power going to come from? One player they might want to have a look at is the top scorer in the Championship, Borja Sainz at Norwich City, who just might freshen up their attacking options. But there's no question Leicester City are in a big relegation battle. They've got a bit of a leaky defence and need an experienced campaigner at the back. Ben Davies at Tottenham, Lewis Dunk at Brighton might be good ideas, and I'm sure they're another club who's looking at Anders Christensen at Barcelona. Fulham are having a wonderful season at Craven Cottage, even dreaming of European football down at the Cottage next season, but they do need a bit of extra strike power, or strike cover anyway. I know they're looking at Evan Ferguson for a loan from Brighton and Hove Albion, and Brighton might be open to that as well, to give him a little bit more experience. Another player they might want to look at is Josh Maja, who's been getting some goals for West Bromwich Albion. Well, at Liverpool, of course, we've read a lot about Mo Salah's situation and whether he will be still at the club next season. Of course, Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, same situation. So it could be that signings are in the offing to just refresh that Liverpool squad. Now, what about Salah? How would they go about replacing him in the squad? One player I think is pretty well known, has admirers at Anfield, is João Pedro at Brighton and Hove Albion, who's got pace and grace and style, and he's got a goal in him as well. They signed him from Watford. He's looked very good down on the South Coast, and he does seem the type who'd be a good fit for Liverpool. So that maybe is one to keep your eye on. Well, Manchester City's blip has become a full-blown crisis, and they really do need to find a defensive midfield player to replace Rodri, who's out for the season. So maybe Zubimendi from Real Sociedad, though he's shown a reluctance to move away from that club in the past. They like Bruno Gyökeres at Newcastle United, but you can't see that happening in January. Maybe being ambitious for the summer, they should be thinking about Joshua Kimmich of Bayern Munich, a really established star whose contract is up this summer. Well, at Manchester United, Ruben Amorim is married to that 3-4-3 system. He needs good wing-backs, and Fulham fans will hate me for saying this, but maybe the man he should be looking at is Antonee Robinson, the American international at Fulham, who has more assists over the last 1.5 seasons, 12 in fact, than any defender playing in the Premier League. He's fast, he raids, he sets up chances, so that would be, I think, a pretty good fit at Old Trafford. Newcastle United had a bit of a nightmare in the summer. They couldn't get any deals over the line. In particular, they've been looking for a long time for a right winger, though they do have Jacob Murphy who can play in that position. But if they are looking to bring somebody in, Jeremy Frimpong, such a great right-sided attacking player for Bayer Leverkusen in their Bundesliga title win, would be a very, very good idea. But if they were looking to go a little lower budget than that, maybe Morgan Whittaker, who does a good job down at Plymouth Argyle, or maybe Rak-Saki, who's been on loan at Sheffield United from Crystal Palace. Nottingham Forest are the surprise team of the season, even threatening to get into next season's Champions League. They have made some astute signings. They defend very well, but in case of an injury, they might just want to bring in another experienced defender. And one name that I've seen linked with Forest is Ben Godfrey, who's been out of favour at Atalanta and might be ready to come home. Well, sadly for the Saints, it looks like they're going to be making an instant return to the Championship. So any business they do from this point will be geared towards making sure they can bounce back at the first attempt and get promotion next season. A couple of players they might want to look at that fit the bill there. Sam Field, whose statistics at Queen's Park Rangers are very good, and the very accomplished Coventry City midfield player, Ben Sheaf. Well, Tottenham Hotspur and Ange Postecoglou, as we know, love a bit of attacking flair, and one situation they might be across is that of Dani Olmo, who is so brilliant scoring goals in the knockout stages for Spain as they won the European Championships. His situation at Barcelona is quite interesting. Because of their financial problems, his registration may run out in January, so they need the money, Barcelona, as well. They've always got to think about any offer, so I just wonder whether that is something Tottenham might be thinking about to add to their attacking midfield options. Another player in the more defensive midfield role who might just shield that defence a little well is Koke of Atletico Madrid, who's been there forever, of course, but he's no longer an automatic pick. He's been substitute quite a lot of times under Diego Simeone this season, and I wonder whether that is just worth an inquiry for Tottenham. I think one of the big issues for West Ham United this season, and why they haven't gone as well as a lot of people might have expected, is a lack of speed and dynamism in central midfield. So I think they're in the queue of clubs who are looking at Jude Bellingham's brother Job, who's doing good things with Sunderland. I think he will play in the Premier League one day, and maybe quite soon, so it would be a good idea to nip to the front of the queue. Well, quite honestly, Wolverhampton Wanderers have had the worst defence in the Premier League this season. It's costing them very, very dearly, and they are seriously threatened with relegation. The number one priority there is a very experienced defender, so you might be thinking even of bringing in a veteran like Johnny Evans from Manchester United. Whether Evans would want to make that move and sign up for another relegation fight would be very much open to question. But they need to be looking at him. And I think they are also one of those clubs looking at Ben Godfrey, who's not getting on very well at Atalanta in Italy.